Welcome in. Happy Friday. It's great to have you here on KCMO Talk Radio. Now, yes, on FM at 95.7. Make sure you set that preset as we roll through a busy Friday morning. And it's always great to have on U.S. Senator from Missouri, now the senior U.S. Senator from Missouri, of course, Josh Hawley, joining us on KCMO. Senator, welcome on. And you are now being heard on crystal clear FM audio on KCMO.
I love it. Thank you for having me. Congratulations. This is awesome. And it's always great to start a Friday with you.
Well, let's start off with obviously what's been on a serious note, a tragic note, the news of the week, and really in many ways the story of the year. And that is what is happening overseas in Israel. And, of course, their response to that. Since Saturday, what's been going on in your world in D.C., along with any Missourians that you've had to help throughout this process?
Well, my biggest concern right now are the number of Missourians and other Americans who are stranded in the war zone. We've had at least one person from Missouri, a gal born in Missouri, who has been killed. We know for sure in this. We believe, unfortunately, there may be more from our state. We're just continuing to try to get those details as we talk with folks. But we also know we have talked with a number of Missourians who are over in the region who want to get home, who can't get home because the airlines are understandably canceling all of these flights. And I continue to call on this administration to get Americans out of the war zone. This is now the second major war in 2 years where Joe Biden is leaving Americans in a war zone. The first being, of course, Afghanistan and that calamitous withdrawal that he caused with his utter dereliction of duty there. So there's no excuse. They need to get Americans out. And then more broadly, Pete, we've got to do everything we can to stand with Israel. Joe Biden giving $6 billion to Iran has got to be one of the worst decisions. I mean, this guy piles up bad decisions by the wagon load, but that one really takes the cake. We are seeing the consequences play out in real time.
Well, it seems like we are, and regardless of how anyone feels in this audience or anywhere for that matter about the future of green energy, it seems like we're really hurting ourselves by suppressing our domestic oil production because someone's going to fill that gap, and it looks like Iran has done it to the tune of billions of dollars in revenues, and they're now on a full war path against the Jews with it.
Yeah, it's the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. And for Joe Biden to go out and trade money for hostages, which is what he did, negotiate with terrorists, which is what he did, and free up $6 billion to the terrorist regime in Iran that we now know was at the same time working with Hamas to plan and greenlight these attacks. Unbelievable. This is all a matter of public record now. Wall Street Journal and others have reported on it. Just unbelievable. And, Biden has been a total disaster as president. I mean, I don't think I have to convince anybody of that, certainly not in our state. But now Americans are being killed, Israelis are being killed, and we're seeing this all-out, full-throated assault on Israel. I mean, worst assault on Israel, Pete, in our lifetimes. And we have got to get Americans safe, and we've got to do everything we can to stand with the state of Israel in this time.
What, when it comes to future, American involvement in this, I mean, Israel is certainly a top-flight military, and we're seeing that play out in real time this week. But what do you want to see this administration do when it comes to support for Israel in this moment?
Well, number one, quit funding the terrorists. Number two, quit sending money to the Palestinian leadership that's totally corrupt. That's something else Biden's done. Hundreds of millions of our tax dollar money, in this case, it's your tax money, has gone to the Palestinian leaders in Gaza and elsewhere who now we see what they're using the money for. So that money needs to stop. The last administration didn't give those people a dime. We should not be spending our taxpayer money on that, number one. The second thing is we should help Israel. Israel is an extremely capable military, obviously extremely capable fighting force. I think we need to publicly continue to stand with them if we can help by supplying arms that they don't have and sort of backstopping. I'm all for that. But, Israel is not going to want us to fight this battle for them. They're going to do it. And they need to be able to do whatever it takes to secure their borders and to secure their people. And we just need to be there to support them, to help in whatever way we can in a supportive role. And I think a lot of that will just be publicly saying that we stand with Israel, that if they have munition shortfalls, we can help provide those, and then letting the Israelis get on with doing what it is they need to do.
I did see Senator Josh Hawley is joining us on KCMO earlier on Thursday, that it looked like the U.S. and Qatar, who's right now got the $6 billion in unfrozen funds that was scheduled to go back to Iran. It looks like that is going to stay in the Qatar bank for now, at least. I mean, what is that a step in the right direction? And if so, what needs to happen next if it is true that the U.S. and Qatar are blocking Iran's access to that $6 billion from the prisoner swap?
The Biden administration needs to refreeze the funds. The $6 billion were released by Joe Biden. They were frozen. We do this a lot with enemies. We've done it with Iran, where we freeze assets overseas. They can't get their hands on that money. And Biden freed up the money, gave them $6 billion as part of the making a deal for hostages. You know, this from a country where we often say we don't negotiate with terrorists. Well, this is why, because this is what happens. He was criticized at the time, and of course, none of us knew at the time just how bad it really was, that Iran was actively working with Hamas at that time that Biden was making the deal. So he needs to refreeze the money. This whole sort of, winging a prayer, just wink, wink, hey, maybe they won't get their hands on the money, or maybe they'll only use it for humanitarian purposes. I mean, do you believe it? If you believe that, then I got a bridge I want to sell you. I mean, they're going to use it for terrorist purposes. That's what Iran does. They hate Israel. They hate Jews. They hate Americans. They want to kill any and all they can get their hands on. So we shouldn't be doing deals with them or buying their oil or helping them get their hands on money. We ought to be freezing everything we can. They need to refreeze the money, and Biden needs to own up to it and say he made a terrible mistake and he's going to change course.
Last thing, Senator, domestic policy. You certainly have been plenty critical of the White House on that front, but how does your criticism, or what would you like to see this White House do when it comes to domestic policy in the wake of what happened last Saturday?
Well, I think in terms of freeing up energy production, I just think you put your finger on it, Pete. We're talking about this part of the world, the Mideast, what's happening here with Israel. Why would we ever want to bankroll the people who are now making this possible, who are carrying out these attacks? We need to open up American energy production full throttle. We need to make sure we're not dependent on anybody. We need to be a net exporter of energy, as we were just a few short years ago. That would get the prices down for working people across this country. It would put our people back to work, and it would take money out of the pockets of these nations like Iran, and Russia, for that matter. All these bad actors, these dictatorships, and China. So we need to get back to domestically. We need to be producing our own energy. We need to be having our own energy jobs, standing up our energy sector. And Joe Biden's decision to strangle that, put all of our people out of work, and make Americans pay $3, $4, $5 a gallon for gas. It's insane. I don't understand it. It is making these dictators rich, and it's making us poor. It's totally crazy.
Senator Hawley, we appreciate you, as always, hopping on KCMO Talk Radio. Of course, now on FM at 95.7. Crystal clear audio that might upset some people, but we always love having you no matter what frequency we're on, Senator. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Josh Hawley, great to have him on KCMO Talk Radio. Always appreciate his time.